Hey, okay, no problem.
Give me a minute. Camran, if you want to correct, if you want to start.
Hello and welcome. This is the sixth episode of Endometriosis Explained. Ask the Experts as part of a series sponsored by the Worldwide Endomarch. The session today is about alternative therapies to surgery like acupuncture, physical therapy, meditation, herbal medicine, nutrition, prayers, etc. The sessions of the previous time can be observed on the website of Worldwide Endomarch. I am Dr. Camran Nezhat, the founder of Worldwide Endomarch. I am joined by the co-founders of the Worldwide Endomarch, Dr. Farr Nezhat, Dr. Ceana Nezhat, Dr. Azadeh Nezhat, and also Barbara Page. Also, the guest speakers, physicians, and colleagues today are Dr. Joelle Osias, Kristy Vermeulen, and Beth Schiffman. Also, our guest speaker today, the patient guest speaker, happened to be a physician, Dr. Athena Mihailos. And we thank the participation of all of them for being part of the session. Each of our experts today have extensive experience in alternative therapies. Beth Schiffman has been practicing Chinese medicine for years and has extensive experience in this area. Dr. Kristy Vermeulen is internationally known for naturopathic therapies and also is the author of the book Happy Hormones. And Dr. Joelle Osias has an illustrious background. She's a graduate of Stanford, Harvard, and Hopkins. And all of them are joined by other physicians and colleagues who are helping us, Dr. Shruti Agrawal and Dr. Joelle Jackman, that they would answer your online questions. We thank you, as always, to participate in our program. These are not medical advices we are giving you. For any kind of medical advice, you need to see an expert and have individual care and treatment. However, we answer these questions as a guideline to help the participant. The next session, which is going to be in October, is going to be about endometriosis of the diaphragm, lung, and chest in general, thoracic endometriosis. If you need other previous sessions, go to the website of Worldwide Endometriosis March, and you can see that all of them in your previous sections. And since so, I would start with Dr. Athena, and I welcome her. She is the director of the emergency ultrasound, and also she is an assistant professor. And we thank her very, very much for taking the time to join us and share her story. She is a patient of Dr. Farr Nezhat. Thank you so much, Athena. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Hi, how are you? Good afternoon. So I'm going to let you know what my story is. I have known that I had fibroids since my 20s. I knew I had an endometrioma at some point. I was following it, but I really didn't address the issue until it was time for me to have kids. So I got married in 2010, and we started trying to have children, but we were unsuccessful. I will also tell you that for many, many years, I would have heavy bleeding, pain with my periods. And then I suppose in the last 3 or 4 years prior to getting married, I had bleeding every single day, literally every single day. So it was very uncomfortable in intercourse and just in general. So what I did was I started in my free time making appointments to various specialists to see what we can do. So I had an initial ultrasound that showed multiple fibroids sometime in 2011, endometriomas, I believe, on both sides of my ovaries. And so I was told that I needed to go to a surgeon to take care of this before I got pregnant. I found a doctor that my husband knew. It was Dr. Griffo, because my next step was IVF since we had been trying for a while. And Dr. Griffo recommended Dr. Nezhat once he did an ultrasound and saw everything that was going on with me. So I went to Dr. Nezhat, and Dr. Nezhat saw a 12 centimeter fibroid at the fundus of the uterus, along with multiple other fibroids. He said I had extensive endometriosis, and he asked why I waited this long to take care of it. I'm just going to backtrack, because before Dr. Nezhat, because he was the last doctor that I had seen someone at New York Methodist Hospital, New York Presbyterian, which had told me that I needed a vertical incision, and that's the only way that I can take care of this issue. I had seen someone at Cornell that said they weren't sure that they can actually take care of this because I had too much going on. I had seen someone at Sloan that said that they were going to get back to me and they were going to convene with other doctors. And I had seen another private doctor in Manhattan that said I required 2 surgeries to take care of this, 2 separate surgeries. Anyway, so I see Dr. Nezhat, and he was very pleasant from the very beginning, very reassuring from the very beginning. And if you know him at all, you know he's always smiling. And he said that he would be able to do the surgery. And I saw him sometime in December, and he scheduled me for February. So February came, and he did my surgery. It took a long time. It was a 5-hour surgery because there was a lot going on. And then he said that I would have to wait about, I think, maybe 8 or 9 months until I can go see Dr. Griffo again. And I did, and I saw Dr. Griffo. And the following year, a year from when my surgery was, I had my first transfer. And it's because of Dr. Nezhat. And I usually don't get this emotional, but it's because of him that I have 3 beautiful children. So he took care of everything. And I recently also went to him because I had a polyp inside the uterus, a benign polyp, which he also took care of in about half an hour. So I am very grateful to him because I went to every single institution that I could think of in Manhattan, and I was very discouraged. And as a doctor, you start thinking about the worst possible things, and you start thinking that this is not going to be taken care of, and maybe I won't be able to have kids right away or even at all. And Dr. Nezhat just smiled at me, said, we'll do a surgery, it'll be fine. And I owe him a lot. So that's my story.
Thank you very much, Athena. This is a wonderful story. And we thank you very, very much for sharing it. And we are very happy to see a lot of smile on your face now. And we really appreciate you joining us. I see you in your car, taking care of your children, dropping them for their sports, etc.
Yes.
But if you have the time and stay online, we would love to have
Of
you.
course.
If there is somebody else has any question, then we would address it to you. And we really, really appreciate your kindness to be on the program. So saying so, I will join. We will dive in the questions. And we will start with Beth Schiffman. Beth, please go ahead and start. And you answer all the questions that it is addressed to you. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. My name's Beth Schiffman, and I have a clinic, Many Lives Chinese Medicine, in Redwood City. And I'm an acupuncturist. I've been practicing for 22 years. And like Dr. Athena's story, which was very brave and a very long journey to her fertility, our clinic specializes in fertility. We see general medicine, but a lot of the ways that we work with endometriosis, while we see endometriosis in younger women with painful periods and spotting and all of that comes with painful cycles, we also see quite a few patients who are on their journeys to conception. So there's Chinese medicine is quite effective in promoting fertility and promoting pain-free cycles. How do we do that? We treat every single patient individually. So with that, we do obviously an individual intake, and we find out most patients come to us, like I said, with pelvic pain, pain with sex, pain with bowel movements, heavy bleeding, spotting, and not very often an endometriosis diagnosis. So the beauty of Chinese medicine is that we treat the symptoms that are up front and very painful, but we also look at the constitution of each patient very deeply. And with that, we make a Chinese diagnosis, and we use acupuncture and extensive herbal medicine to help rebalance hormones. We promote blood circulation, and we reduce pain, which contributes to women actually having to have better cycles and a better chance of fertility. So acupuncture is quite effective. And when we come to the point, like Dr. Athena's story, where there needs to be some further investigation, then we definitely refer out, and we refer to basically Dr. Nezhat and work with him pre-surgically, post-surgically, to ensure a comfortable process and hopefully a better chance of conception. Chinese medicine treats a wide range of women's concerns, and endometriosis we see in our clinic tends to be, 60 to 70% of our patients. Other questions that are interesting and we get asked often are about our herbal formulas and our herbal medicine. We create very elegant formulas. We do them we make them into a tea, and they're individually created for this each person's case. So these formulas are often considered a little bit mysterious because you can't really get them on the open market. You can't buy them at CVS or, in a general drugstore. So basically, the art of our medicine and being herbalists to create these elegant formulas contribute to our treatment protocols for each individual case of endometriosis. Some formulas are very mild. Some formulas are very, if the patient has a strong constitution, some formulas can be very rigorous. So with the formulas, we treat every phase of the menstrual cycle. So when the menstrual cycle is optimized, then the pain tends to be really decreased and the patient is much more comfortable. So herbal formulas are used quite a bit in the mix. So we do acupuncture, we use herbal formulas, we look at diet, and we look at lifestyle combined to create a treatment plan for our patients. On the herbal side of things, a lot of patients ask about the side effects of herbs. And when a patient is seeing an herbalist, an acupuncturist in the state of California is an herbalist as well. So when the patient sees an herbalist or us, the herbal formulas that are created are safe because we are trained to create these formulas with, if there's very toxic or stringent herbs, not toxic, but if there are very stringent herbs in the formulas, we use mild other herbs to offset the balance. So the formulas tend to have 14 to 18 different Chinese herbs in them, which work synergistically to create a positive outcome. There are side effects. Sometimes patients will experience some loose stools. Maybe they have a little bit of a headache, some stomach upset, but it's not very common because we've been working with these herbs and these herbal formulas for many years. We match the herbal formula to the patient's constitution. How often, there's another question too about herbs, and we talk about dosages and how much herbs should I take. And in our clinic, when we give herbal formulas, we dispense either herbs in pill form for very busy individuals, or we make the customized teas, which give us a lot more flexibility with regard to really working on specifically the diagnosis. So it gives us a little bit more power for success when we give an herbal tea. The teas are, we give 2 teaspoons of, the teas come in sand form, so they're grains. You don't have to boil them. They come in like a sand, they look like sand. And so basically they're called grains. So we give 2 teaspoons of grains in hot water twice a day, and you mix it up and you drink it. It's not the old fashioned way where we've been taught to actually boil the actual, dongui and baishao, all of these herbs in a pot. We don't really do that anymore because those kinds of raw herbs tend to get moldy and buggy, and that's not healthy for our patients. So the herbs that we get are now distilled down into grain form in which we can dispense them quite easily. So for the herbal piece, there's a lot of questions about herbs out there or Chinese herbs. A lot of times I get the question of, what 4 herbs can I take to help with my pain? And the answer is that we don't often dispense herbs in single form. So we don't give 4 herbs. And you won't really find 4 herbs out at Whole Foods or at any market to take. You really want to see an herbalist to get the herbal formula that's for you, and that herbal formula can be shipped to you, or, it will always be available to you. So it's not like you go once and you get an herbal formula and then you don't get it anymore. So we are available to set that kind of system up. So for herbs, we work very, very closely with herbal herbal formulas to support the acupuncture treatments with a diet and a lifestyle to provide a positive outcome for endometriosis. Then the biggest question I get is, what is the single most pain medication I can take that's herbal? That for us doesn't really happen. That would be an herbal formula that we are creating so you can have the outcomes of less pain. There's not one single pain herb or herbal formula out there that's gonna really do the trick. You really want to come see an herbalist or a licensed practitioner to get those herbal formulas. And lastly, the very last question I get, I'm sorry I'm jumping around a little bit, but this has to do with the acupuncture treatments, which I did forget. But how long should I be seen by an acupuncturist to get any sort of results? Typically, we like to follow a woman through 3 cycles to get about 50% of the pain reduced. And then we go 3 or 6 months long to actually see full results. Do we cure endometriosis? No, we don't. We don't cure it. We help manage the pain. We help put together a diet and a lifestyle plan that will be manageable, that's the operative word, and effective. And then we work very closely with Dr. Nezhat, all of Dr. Nezhat's, to work with the highly medical side that obviously acupuncturists were not able to do. And that, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Beth, for very, very insightful description and answering. As I mentioned earlier, all the questions that have been submitted, our panel are addressing it in one session. And if you have more questions, there are other physicians, Dr. Agrawal and Dr. Jackman online answering your questions. And if you have any specific question for the panel, please let us know. We will ask them. I have one question. How or is there a limit or any of these medications could cause or increase the bleeding time? Let me tell you why I'm asking this question. Over the years, my brothers and I and my niece, we have experienced, I remember at least in my experience, 2 cases of the patient that they were taking Chinese medicine, and one of them was a pediatrician actually. Yeah. And the other one was a patient that she was from China and she was taking excessive amount of Chinese medicine. And usually before the surgery, when the outpatient taking any kind of medication, aspirin, Motrin, we tell all of them to stop. But because these products have some medicinal products, we also are very careful. And we checked their bleeding time to see how much bleeding, but it was almost normal. But during surgery, they had a lot of bleeding and they had nothing else. The only thing that we could find out is they were taking a ton of medicine. What I'm trying to ask, is there a limit to it? Do you think there is a side effects, or do you tell patient to take this much and don't go over? I appreciate if you respond.
Yes, with dispensing the herbal formulas, we also check if the patient does not come in for acupuncture but only gets herbal formulas from us. We actually reevaluate them every 3 months. And with surgery, even with any sort of surgery, we ask them to stop any sort of herbal intake a full week prior to the surgery. So I don't know in those 2 cases if they had instructions to stop their medications before the surgery. I think you said you asked them to.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. Yes, and what happened, specifically about one of them, she said, we asked everybody to stop 2 weeks, and Later, when we investigated further, unfortunately, both of them, they had not stopped. And they have
Oh,
continued to take a lot of the herbal medicine. So you are correct.
yes. We are quite diligent in working along with our physicians. So if there's ever if there's surgery coming, if there's any sort of procedure that's coming up, even dentistry, we always request that they stop their herbs at least a week pre-surgery. And then in the following cases of, herbs gone wild, basically, if the patient's constitution is really strong and they're taking a really big blood-breaking formula, which we do give, not to we can't eradicate endometriosis, but sometimes their blood stasis is their inflammation is so strong that we will give herbs to that. When we dispense those types of formulas, they are seen as once a week, and we are monitoring their every secretion. So they are under close monitoring. While we give herbs also to maintain the cycle, maintain that the hormones are balanced and the cycles are balanced, we give those formulas for 3 to 6 months at a time. They have to come back. They have to come back and check in with us, or we do a reevaluation. Like pharma, they don't get refills automatically.
Well, thank you very much. That was very, very helpful. So we have one of the other questions in between. Thank you very much, Beth. Dr. Farr Nezhat, do you want to answer your question?
Yes, what was the question? There are two questions. So one question was, I have endometriosis, and my physician said if I take hormonal treatment, the chance of my endometriosis coming back is less, but I cannot take hormones, and what I should do. So endometriosis is a very complex condition. The characteristic of endometriosis is estrogen-dependent chronic inflammatory disease. So, unfortunately, at the present time, the most effective way to make a diagnosis and treat the disease is surgery. So the first step is that you should contact or find a physician to remove and treat all the visible endometriosis as much as possible. So that is the first step. The next step is based on the patient's age and her symptoms, you have to individualize the treatment. Unfortunately, endometriosis affects the reproductive system, and I encourage all of my young patients that they do not have family to consider thinking about having family as soon as possible. Have a consultation with the infertility specialists. Even sometimes I refer them to have egg freezing or embryo freezing. Also, because it is inflammatory disease and the patient has, for example, pain, I try to connect them to alternative treatment like acupuncture and the non-hormonal remedies, as was discussed before, to connect them to have a multidisciplinary approach to treat that individual person. If they could get some hormonal therapy and there are different types, I will find out why she cannot take the hormones. And some of the side effects actually may not be severe, or you could modify the hormonal treatment, because we have published papers that if the patient does not ovulate, will not form chocolate cyst. That is very important, that endometrioma or chocolate cyst comes from the ovulation. They have published several papers about it. And as Dr. Mihailos mentioned herself, she had endometrioma or chocolate cyst. And this, we could put some sort of suppressive therapy, birth control pills, and there are different dosages, and modify that treatment that she does not develop endometrioma. And in the same time, like her, she wanted to get pregnant, refer her to a good reproductive endocrinologist to get pregnant and follow them. So that is the summary of my answer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Farr Nezhat. We appreciate it. Thank you for your comments. The next person who addressed many of the questions of the audience and participant is Dr. Kristy Vermeulen. Dr. Kristy Vermeulen, as I mentioned, he is a naturopath and internationally known, and also the author of the book of Happy Hormones. Please, Kristy, go ahead and answer the questions addressed to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. So one of the most common questions I get with my endometriosis patients, well, first of all, I see a lot of endometriosis patients that come to me as a last resort. They've been struggling for years with painful menstrual periods, painful intercourse, heavy bleeding, chronic pelvic pain, bladder pain before their periods. And they've been struggling for years. And because, you know, endometriosis is not a readily diagnosed condition. So one of the first steps I always do when I'm suspecting it is refer to Dr. Nezhat. He's in the Bay Area where I work. And then we really get a confirmation about if it's indeed endometriosis or not. I recommend the majority of my patients go ahead with the surgery with Dr. Nezhat. And then the next step is really, okay, what do we do next? You know, we have the hormonal control options to keep endometriosis suppressed, or we have the natural options. I do have a lot of patients who can't take the hormones. They've had side effects with the birth control pill and the IUD. So then we go into a lot of the natural therapies. And, you know, there isn't just one single natural therapy when we're looking at suppressing endometriosis. It really does need to be a holistic approach. You know, it has to include dietary changes, which I'll talk about, lifestyle changes as well, supplementation with, you know, different herbal formulas like Beth was speaking about. She does a lot of the Chinese herbs. I do a lot of more of the pharmaceutical grade supplements. And then hormonal therapy, the bioidentical therapies, I use quite a bit. Women tend to have much less side effects with the bioidentical versus some of the other ones. And I'll go through and explain some of that for you. But I just want to get across that it really does have to be a multifactorial approach when treating endometriosis. So diet, you know, this is one of the key foundation for preventing endometriosis recurrence. And what we really want to look at here is decreasing inflammation in the body, because we know endometriosis, the pain, the symptoms all worsen when we're in an inflammatory state. So it needs to be more of an anti-inflammatory diet. And we also need to address the source of estrogens in the diet. there's a lot of chemicals in our environment and in our food that are termed xenoestrogens. These xenoestrogens, they can actually mimic estrogen in the body and stimulate estrogen-like effects. And I have seen these xenoestrogens actually increase serum estrogen levels in my patients' blood results and worsen endometriosis pain. So diet-wise, it's decreasing inflammation and taking out any hormonal impacts from the xenoestrogens. So really like a plant-based diet, low in animal products, like low dairy, low red meat, and yeah, low dairy, low red meat, low sugar, as well is really the way to go. Taking out sugar significantly decreases inflammation. And sometimes just with that, I see patients' endometriosis symptoms improve. And this means if you look at the nutritional label on the back of any food you're eating, you'll see if sugar has been added to the ingredient label, and you'll see the number of grams. Ideally, you want to try to keep your sugar intake below 25 grams per day. And I see it a lot, we're already
hard to do
by breakfast. When we look at granola, yogurt, different types of cereal, we're already, 15 grams already by the time breakfast is over. So we have to do a lot of work, with really focusing on a whole foods diet where you're eating real foods. You're not eating much that comes already packaged or in a box, because that's where the sugars start to sneak in. Red meat is important to take out because the beef here is not only treated with hormones and has estrogen in it, it's also very high in something called arachidonic acid. Arachidonic acid feeds directly into our inflammatory pathways. So again, like taking out red meat and sugar, you can already have quite a big improvement with some of the endometriosis symptoms. And then if you take out gluten and dairy products on top of that, even better. A lot of research has shown that by taking gluten out of the diet, your endometriosis symptoms can reduce up to 65-ish%. And this can be from a few different reasons. Gluten, one, causes inflammation itself. It's quite a big molecule for our body to digest and tends to activate our immune system. But a lot of gluten-containing foods also have a ton of sugar in them. So it's kind of two-pronged. The gluten itself is a problem, but also the foods that contain gluten tend to be a problem. So when you're hearing a lot of no's from me, like no dairy, no sugar, no gluten, no red meat, you really want to kind of change the mindset away from all the no's to, like what can I eat? What should I eat? And this is where you really want to focus on the whole foods. Like for instance, breakfast, instead of having granola or cereal, think about doing, whole grain oatmeal, for instance. And instead of adding sugar, you can add some fresh fruit to it and use almond milk or oat milk. You want to make sure that at least your lunch and dinner, half of your plate is veggies. These vegetables are so important. And it's not just because they're healthy for us, but they also contain a lot of fiber, which is going to bind up excess estrogen. It's one of the key things that I do with my endometriosis patients is try to reduce estrogen. And by having more fiber and plants in your diet, it's going to help bind that up and help take some of that estrogen out of the body. The vegetables are also very high in antioxidants, which are going to help decrease inflammation. And also by adding in more veggies, you're not going to be eating as many of the foods that have the sugars and the dairy and the gluten in them. So if you could focus on a healthy breakfast, either like whole grains, oatmeal, do like a protein shake. However, protein shakes, we've got to be careful of too, because a lot of that protein powder is either whey protein, which is a dairy product, which can worsen inflammation and increase estrogen, or they're also soy. And I know I've received some questions about soy protein. And there's so much debate whether soy is good or bad and whether it increases estrogen or not. From what I've seen in clinical practice, I think it's a problem. I have at least the highly concentrated soy. So soy that's found in protein powders and bars are the ones that I see cause the issue. Having like tofu and tempeh, I haven't seen an issue with endometriosis and estrogen excess symptoms, but definitely soy protein bars, I have. I've seen it I had one patient, her serum estrogen levels went from about 150 in the luteal phase, so that the weeks leading up to your menstrual period, up to 400. And once I took out the soy protein, so the difference was when 150 to 400, because she added in soy protein. Once I took out the soy protein powder, it dropped back down. So I have seen it clinically with that high concentration of soy products. So yeah, diet wise, whole foods, half your plate, veggies is the way to go. Whole grains are lovely. Just because I'm saying take out gluten and sugar doesn't mean that you can't eat oatmeal, you can't eat brown rice, quinoa, couscous has gluten, so that one's still out. But there's a lot of whole grains that you can still eat and enjoy. But definitely plant-based, low sugar, low dairy, no gluten. So that's kind of the diet component. One question I get along with diet actually is about wine and alcohol. Same thing with wine, like, yes, red wine has resveratrol in it and some antioxidants, which are great, like we all need a little bit more antioxidants. But the problem with alcohol and wine is that the side effects of the alcohol outweigh the benefit of the little bit of antioxidants and resveratrol you get in the wine. There's every year, the cancer societies are releasing new research, and they do show that, especially for women, more than 2 alcoholic drinks per week does increase the risk of heart disease, colon cancer, breast cancer. And alcohol itself also increases estrogen levels in the body. So, you don't have to take alcohol out completely, but limiting it to 2 drinks per week, I think is the better way to go, for sure. Okay, so that's kind of the diet component. That's super important when we're trying to suppress endometriosis. One of the other key parts is lifestyle. And lifestyle is a big thing. This involves exercise, it involves stress reduction, it involves your environment and its toxicity. So we do see that stress affects our immune system and our inflammatory system. And I have clinically seen that high stress does worsen endometriosis symptoms. And yes, easier said than done. How do we, we live it, we all have stress in our lives. But sometimes there's little tools that you can do that will help your body cope a little bit better. And some simple things would be, set up some predictability for your body, like give yourself some routine. So your body knows what to expect every day. So eat your meals at the same times, go to bed and wake up at the same time, exercise at the same times. If you can do that, it does bring down your stress response because your body knows what's going to happen to it next. Some other things, especially now during the pandemic, what I've been hearing from my patients is that they have no separation anymore from work and personal life because majority of people are working from home. And that's not good. We need to be able to set boundaries when it comes to our work and our personal life. So one thing to reduce stress would be also, have your set work hours. And that's it, leave your evenings free if you can. And if you can't, then you got to leave some time for yourself in the mornings and take a lunch break, give your brain and your body a bit of a break. And your colleagues, your bosses, they get used to it. They're say, okay, like, I know you're not working during these hours, but I know that you're going to take care of it when you're back on at this time. So it also provides some good expectations between you and your colleagues to have set boundaries when it comes to work hours. And then, of course, taking care of ourselves, especially for women, I find that we're the last, we take care of ourselves last, everyone else kind of comes first for us. And I think it's really important that we still, even if it's, 15 minutes a day, we're still doing something that brings us joy, that we like to do. So really, I encourage all of you to really think about what brings you joy and try to sneak some of that into your life every day. And yeah, and what doesn't bring you joy, as we overcommit, we all do. Also go through and create a list of everything that you're doing and see what makes you happy and what doesn't. And if there's things on that list that you really don't like doing, get rid of them if you can. Of course, we can't get rid of everything we don't like, but try to make some changes there.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kristy. That was very, very insightful, very helpful. Thank you very, very much. That is very wonderful, all of your advice, and we appreciate it.
Yeah.
So we will go with the next one question of Dr. Ceana Nezhat and then Dr. Joelle Osias. Also, I would like to let you know that the app of Worldwide Endomarch is available for you, all of you online, and it's completely free from around the world. You can use that app to help you diagnose, to help you. Only it's not a treatment, but helps you to see possibly you might have endometriosis, and you can see the advice of the physician. Also, as you know, Worldwide Endomarch is a charity philanthropic organization, is a 501c3. All of your donations are tax deductible. We appreciate it very, very much. And by now, Dr. Ceana Nezhat could address his question, and then we'll go with Dr. Osias.
Hello, I'm Ceana Nezhat from Atlanta, Georgia, and I'd like to thank all of the participants and the faculty. Actually, the question for me was, do all the herbs have hormones in them? But with two excellent presentations you heard before, they covered most of the area that I would like to address. Except I'd like to elaborate that the word natural could be misleading. And anytime we go in the grocery store, herbal store, and they said, oh, this is a natural product or organic product, just read the content of it, see how it's been prepared. I tell my patients, cyanide is natural also. We just have to be careful how we approach these organic or natural product. Do they match to our body or not? As it was mentioned, soy has phytoestrogens, and a lot of people drink soy milk or almond milk. These are all natural, but they may not be natural to our body. They may not be set for us to use it. Another question comes that how does it work if you blend and multiple vegetables? Vegetables are meant to chew, not to drink. So some of these blending that we do, it could affect the function of the herb or the vegetable we are using. It takes the fiber effect away, it takes the enzyme effect away. So it's always good to be careful. We have excellent nutritionists, herbalists that talk with them. It's simple. There was a time you had to go and visit each one, but right now, easily you can contact either Kristy, Beth, or any other nutritionists who are
working with us, and talk with them about your individual condition and let them customize some products directed to you and your body. And thank you very much for letting me discuss this point with you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ceana Nezhat. The next speaker, and she's going to address questions of the rest of the questions in respect to alternative therapies, herbs, and diet that complements the excellent presentations by Beth and Kristy is Dr. Joelle Osias. Joelle, go ahead, please.
Hello, hi, I'm Dr. Osias, and it's really a pleasure to be here today to talk a little bit about some alternative therapies for the treatment of endometriosis. The questions that I'm going to be answering overlap a little bit with what Kristy discussed in terms of the diet for endometriosis. Like her, I definitely recommend a hypoallergenic diet. So I recommend that patients try to eliminate the most common inflammatory foods. So the first one, of course, is wheat, as she mentioned. Dairy, she already mentioned as well. Soy, we eliminate. Corn, because it's genetically modified. Peanuts, because of the high presence of aflatoxin. And then we try to eliminate all the synthetic sweeteners, because a lot of patients are using things like NutraSweet in an effort to lower their caloric intake. But this has a detrimental impact on the gut microbiome. So if you recall, there's a major connection between the gut and the brain. And since endometriosis is associated with a lot of pain, we want to support gut health, because as much as we have an imbalanced gut microbiome, that impacts the perception of pain. So we generally recommend for the patients to eliminate wheat, dairy, soy, corn, peanuts, and also all the synthetic sweeteners. The other question that I was asked was about the use of CBD for the management of endometriosis-related pain. CBD is very interesting and a very an area of evolving interest, and I think has a lot of applications for both pain and other conditions. It's been used in the past for a seizure disorder, also used for nausea related to chemotherapy and cancer. But for the relief of endometriosis-related pain, a lot of people have been used a CBD tincture. The usual dose is somewhere around 12.5 milligrams on the low side. A medium dose would be somewhere around 25 to 75 milligrams. And then the high dose would be 100 and above. Generally speaking, CBD is very well tolerated, so people don't have to worry about a very high level of toxicity, but the response is very individualized. This is due to the fact there's a lot of variation among patients in their metabolism of CBD. So to get a better assessment of what an individual patient's tolerance would be, there's a company that offers a genetic testing that looks at how the liver processes the CBD to look at whether or not there is a variation in the different enzymes that process the CBD, and that will let you know whether you're a fast metabolizer or a slow metabolizer. So if you're a fast metabolizer, then you might require a higher dose, but if you're a slow metabolizer, then you need a lower dose. So in that case, the dosing has to be individualized based on that patient's particular genetics. So that's really helpful. And I think, let's see if I can find the company that offers that treatment. The test is fairly inexpensive, only $129. It's called cannabisdna.com. is a company that offers that testing. Usually it has to be ordered by a physician, but it's not very expensive. And I think it helps patients who are interested in CBD as a potential modality to help their pain to better understand whether it would be a good option for them and to figure out how they should dose it. So generally speaking, I say start low and go slow, because sometimes people are impatient and they want to get the pain over quickly, but really it takes usually about a week to 2 for patients to begin to see the effect. So they will not see it very quickly. But for different patients, we individualize the treatment options based on their particular needs. Patients also ask about marijuana. Marijuana has a higher concentration of THC. So THC is more responsible for the euphoric effect that we associate with cannabis. And so generally speaking, you think about a ratio of 10 to 1. So let's say if you're using 10 milligrams of the CBD, you'd be using about 1 milligram of the THC. Once you get about 5 milligrams, the euphoria sets in. So if people want to avoid that euphoric sensation, then they usually stay below 5 milligrams. Patient asked again about the whether we recommend a gluten-free diet for most patients with endometriosis. I definitely do. I think that gluten creates a lot of gut dysbiosis and a lot of gut symptoms, and for that reason, I think it's best to eliminate. But if patients want to individualize their dietary regimen, then we offer some food and tolerance testing that allows them to find out what foods create the most inflammation for them, so then they can decide what specific dietary regimen would be most appropriate. So we can personalize it that way. And patients ask me about whether you can combine alternative therapy and conventional therapy. I think you definitely can, especially if we think about detoxification, so things that support the liver. So we think about milk thistle, there is some broccoli extracts that helps to support detoxification, and that can be used in conjunction with conventional therapy like Gizian or other oral contraceptive pills. And I think that was most of the questions that you had for me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Osias. As always, very helpful and very insightful. So could you please mention some of the foods that they are gluten-free, or some of them that they do have gluten? Could you mention some of their names?
Yes, absolutely. So I think of wheat as being most prevalent in things like bread. Pasta has a very high concentration of gluten, and it's also present in a lot of sauces. So you have to be very careful in reading the ingredients. So I think I recommend for all my patients with endometriosis to become food detectives. I mean, they have to always read the labels before they purchase an item to look for gluten and make sure that they avoid them. And Whole Foods has a great selection of gluten-free products. They have gluten-free bread, they have gluten-free pasta. So in California, there's a wide variety of alternatives for patients who are trying to avoid gluten in their diet.
Thank you very much. This has been very, very useful, and we appreciate it very much. So I'd like to thank Mr. Schiffman, Dr. Vermeulen, Dr. Osias, Dr. Mihailos, and Dr. Agrawal and Dr. Jackman. Also, I would like to thank all of you around the world for listening, and all the headquarters of Endomarch volunteers around here with Zoe Pennington, Tiffany Petowski, and Eliza Ackroyd, and Andrew, and Barbara Page, and Sean Stetner. They have been all done all the work on a volunteering basis. The next session next month would be about Endomarch and endometriosis of the lungs and the diaphragm, and the pleura of the chest. It is going to be on October 31st. We appreciate you listening, and if you need to listen to the previous sessions, you can look at Worldwide Endomarch on the top, and you can see to the other session. We thank all of you again and wish you a wonderful month until we see you next month. Bye-bye.